let's talk about fear. Fear is a topic we all have to deal with, especially when we work with horses. Not only about our own fears and the stuff we're afraid of when we handle horses, but of course also about the fears horses can have. And I think most equestrians are like more focused on the fear of the horse when they're afraid. Situations can get dangerous, and of course we want calm and confident horses. So whatever we do with our horses, we want them to be okay with it, like going into the stable, being tied up, going into the trailer, being in different places, going outside. We don't want our horses to be afraid. We're a lot of times busy with fear in regards to horses. And our approach is we can recognize fear in horses and we don't want them to feel fear. But most of the times we don't exactly know how are we going to do that? How are we telling our horses, teaching them to not be afraid? And fear can become such a big topic that you literally can't do anything with your horse. There are a lot of people out there that struggle with the horse because of fear, because their horses are afraid. And then they're totally lost. Like, okay, what now? How do I teach them to not be afraid? And I know it's a big topic. It's a big topic amongst trainers as well, how to teach people to teach their horses not to be afraid. But I think we're mostly missing a step before that, and that is our own fears, our own relationship with fear itself. So let's talk a bit about fear in humans, the fear in us, before we go to the horses. And as I always say, life translates to horsemanship and horsemanship translates to life. So everything I learn from the horses, everything I want to teach about the horses is also about us, about you, about me, who we are as a species and how we interact with our horses. And I believe we first must know ourselves. We first must be grounded in ourselves before we can teach it to our horses. It's the same as you would teach your child, or you're in a profession where you teach, or where you want to be a role model. So you first have to integrate it yourself before you can convince somebody to do the same thing. So before we can convince our horses to not be afraid, we maybe have to look at our own fears first and make peace with them. And fear is such a big thing, and it's a quite emotional thing. So it's hard to talk about it. It's hard to talk about it as a whole society. We rarely talk about fear. We rarely admit fear, and it's kind of a taboo topic. And I want to explain to you why. And let's just dig into it. Let's just talk about fear. When you work with your horses and there's something holding you off, like not going outside with your horse because your horse is so difficult. It's so difficult. I don't want to. I don't have any motivation to do so. Ask yourself, is it motivation or is it fear? Because motivation can only come from a place we feel comfortable and we feel inspired, and we can't feel inspired when we're afraid. So every time you struggle with your horse, try to come back to this vulnerability and really ask you, why am I not doing this? What am I afraid of? And then you realize you can literally break everything down to fear eventually. And that's just the analyzing part, right? So we're not here to solve this. We just realized it and now we are aware. And that's the very first step. And it's an important step. You can't miss that step. So if you want to work on your fears, you want to work on your procrastination, you want to become more motivated, you want to feel inspired to do something with your horse, you have to get aware of your fears. And that's the other part of getting aware of your own fears. Not that you are not allowed to feel fear. It's not that you should not, never ever feel fear with your horses. You definitely should. That's what I said in the beginning, because fear has a function and fear is necessary and fear is just neutral. It serves you. It's not good nor bad. You don't have to be ashamed of it. You don't have to attract it in your life, but it's just there. It's a function and we need it to function. Especially when we work with horses, which are big scary beings. So I have a horse that I don't know and I want to walk the horse for the first time outside his comfort zone. So let's say the comfort zone is stable, the field and the way between them. And then we have the property, and maybe we have the driveway, and then we have the street, and so on. So I take this horse and I walk it out of this comfort zone onto the property. And then I'm really aware. I feel my body, I feel the fear, I'm on. I can now recognize how the horse is feeling because I'm not playing scenarios in my head. I'm not telling stories about my fear. I'm not trying to suppress my fear through cognitive thinking and in a dialogue. I'm just aware I am okay with my fear and I can use the sharpness of my senses to analyze the horse. How is his state of mind? What are the signals in his face, maybe, or in his body? How far up in his fear scale is the horse? And I can react to it accordingly. And then we go back to the green zone. Relax. I let him graze. I let him breathe. I let him chew and lick to calm his nervous system down. And I can do exactly the same. I see the horse is calming down, so I'm calming down. And then I can learn to trust the horse because I saw how he calmed down. I see his signs. I get to know him. How is he reacting? And I know myself. I know my feelings of fear. I know I'm not going to freeze. I'm not going to escalate. With this pattern of going back and forth, feeling the fear, allowing the fear of both parties, we get to know each other. We get to trust each other. It's a very similar process of how I feel fear and how I deal with fear and how the horses feel. So we don't have to make this distinction that humans are so different from horses and that we have to teach them and we have to be the better one or whatever. We don't need methods or a fancy tag. It's just through this experience together, to the shared experience of not using our cognition to suppress something and tell stories about it, but just be in the primal emotion so it can use itself, it can get used so it can let go, so it is used up, it serves its function. And this is how a nervous system calms itself down again. This is just really how it's intended to be. Feel the fear, use its function, get to the goal you had with the fear so you can let it go. And since we talked about walking your horse outside, I think that's a pretty good example. And maybe you can like tap into it now from your own perspective. What are you experiencing with your horse? Where your issues lie? And maybe don't expect a fix, not from me, not from yourself, not from your horse. Just learn to be aware and present and use the mechanisms of your body because they're all there for a reason and nothing is to be suppressed, to be ashamed of, to not talk about. Okay, I think that's an important lesson, anyways, and I hope you think that too, that it belongs into the horsemanship sector and that it helps you further on your path. So I'm gonna add this video probably to my course, and I hope you enjoyed it and have a nice day.